Global from Asia, episode 259, Tears in Hong Kong.
Welcome to the Global from Asia podcast, where the daunting process of running an international business is broken down into straight-up, actionable advice. And now, your host, Michael Michelini.
Without risk or without doing a little bit of edgy stuff, sometimes it might get a little bit boring. I know some of you don't have so much interest in Amazon or e-commerce or want more interviews of China, Hong Kong, Asia business action. So I hope you're going to enjoy today's episode. Hopefully I don't get the show blocked or DDoS attacked or banned from China or something. We've had some risque interviews that some of my friends or people in the community feel is a little bit risky. We've had some different cases of some campaigns we've done. Today is probably one of the more riskier ones. But maybe that's what is going to make it one of the more interesting ones, or maybe one of the more popular ones. But I feel like it's my job. I guess some people say, what am I, a reporter now? I'm a free reporter. I report for free for you guys. But it's about what's happening in Hong Kong. You know, I'm down here in Thailand, living a good life, sipping coconuts and Mai Tais and on hammocks and, no, it's not like that. But, I'm not in that nut job insanity of Hong Kong and Shenzhen like I kind of miss. But it's definitely has been insane the last couple of weeks with these protests, riots, gatherings, groups of people getting together. Depends who you ask or what news channel you read or watch as far as what they say it's about. We have somebody that's willing to come and share what he has seen with his own two eyes and witnessed in Hong Kong. Chris Moore, buddy of mine, I met him at my wedding, if you can believe that. Kind of read off my blog and asked if he could come, and he came. That's how I met him. Pretty cool. But he is sharing what he firsthand witnessed. He was tear gassed there. He's an American dude. White dude getting well, I don't think they shot it directly at him, but he was in the effects. And I don't know what's going to happen. I mean, I'm heavily invested still, even though I'm down in Thailand, in China and Hong Kong business. I mean, a lot of listeners are also invested in this and curious of what's happening. So, I'm more always trying to put my business hat on. I'm not a politician. I don't feel like running for the president of the United States, or I don't feel like running for the president of China anytime soon. So we're going to just dive into this one, and I'll just let it go. I'm just going to let it go. Maybe download this, maybe before it might get taken offline. Who knows? Maybe keep this one yourself. Distribute it, host it some other server so that if it gets taken down here, maybe it'll be somewhere else. But it's just some experiences and insights of what is happening in Hong Kong in middle of June 2019. Let's listen in. Are you making payments in and out of Hong Kong? Mostly out. Maybe you're trying to get your money out of Hong Kong during what's happening in the news. You might want to consider GoRemit.hk, a cross-border payments company for your Hong Kong bank. Save money in fees and time, as well as decent customer service that helps me out as well as others I know that use the service. They're a great startup that supports the show here at Global from Asia, and if you enjoy what you hear and you want to give back, consider signing up for free, going through the KYC process of GoRemit.hk, and they will get you onboarded so you can make payments for your suppliers in China, or maybe your new suppliers in Thailand, or new suppliers in Vietnam, or other places around the world. Check them out. They're growing fast, and they are, as you can see or hear, a supporter of the show, and I appreciate them. So www.goremit.hk. Thank you. Okay, thank you, everybody. Episode 259, Global from Asia. We're on the real time here. Usually I batch interviews and I put them in the not archives. I kind of like line them up for a month, but we're kind of like in real time. So it's just a few days before the show goes live. And I think this is a topic that Global from Asia has to talk about. I mean, maybe we'll get blocked in China or something, but we probably won't publish this on our normal Chinese WeChat and our Chinese channels, but I think this will have to be in the archives for 259. It might be a blank one in the China channel, but we are talking about what's happening in Hong Kong. And I'm not on the ground. I'm not hopping between borders like a lot of listeners are used to. I've been down here in Thailand almost a year now. So I brought on a friend and somebody else that is an adventurer like me, and Chris Moore. He's been on the podcast way back in the day. Thanks for coming on, Chris.
Sure. Pleasure to be back on your show.
Yeah, it's always great to, just really just sharing experience and knowledge today. And you've been talking in the past about marketing and banking. Today, I don't want to get so political, but I think that, I did talk a little bit about Occupy in 2014 on the show. I feel like I don't even know what to call. What's the title of this? Like, Occupy was an easier campaign. Is this like extradition? Is that extradition? Is that what this is called?
They've been Hong Kong protest, and then the actual the thing that they're protesting is the anti-extra. They're against the extradition law.
Yeah.
Where, and so that's kind of the hashtag you'd see on Twitter.
Yeah, like, which is not
anti-extradition.
Which is, I think whoever's meant, I guess, actually this was not as centralized. I think Occupy was more like there was these student, I forget the names, there were some famous students that were helping. This is kind of almost decentralized protest, right?
That's by design, because the students learned from the 2014 umbrella movement people got persecuted after that. And so there has been some organization on this one with like on Telegram and stuff, but people aren't taking photos. When I was walking around taking photos, people were yelling at me in Cantonese. I didn't know what they were saying. And then said, like, don't take photos because of persecution. So they're very aware of that. And guys went to jail from the umbrella movement in the 2014 one. And so they've figured out, ways not to have leaders. So
that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think somebody got in trouble for a 20,000 person Telegram group. I heard.
Yep. I heard it was like 30,000, but yeah, that's correct. They got arrested.
And there was even DDoS attacks to Telegram servers coming from mainland China during that time.
I don't really use Telegram. It's just same stuff I've read online. The founder of Telegram said that.
So today, I mean, of course, I guess this will be categorized as political, but I also want to try to connect it to the business. I mean, I'm a partner in a CPA company. I try to get I don't want to throw people, put people's names out there, but I try to get some other people, but you're willing to get on the show and talk about this. I know a lot of locals, like you said, don't want to be connected to it, but what was it, like 2 million people came out last Sunday? Or it was 20% or 30% of the population was protesting in Hong Kong.
Yeah, in all these sort of things, you never know, like with the numbers, but it was definitely massive and bigger than the Sunday before when they said there was around 1 million. And those numbers are from the organizers. So these are sanctioned. These people have permits for these protests. So the Sunday, the 9th, there was around 1 million, and then on the 16th it was around 2, and that went from I walked through that and that went like twice as long as the one the week before. I didn't know what was going on the week before. I just saw like tons of people on the subway and stuff and avoided that. And then I didn't really have any idea what was going on until the Wednesday, kind of, I guess they called it a riot or something, was happening, because I like that kind of excitement. So
so there's so much to talk about, but back to the reason our goal for me just covering this is it is business related. I mean, I've heard of people now wanting to get their money out, close their company, shut down, or even at Unipro, our partner CPA company I'm a shareholder of and marketing with, is where we couldn't even do taxes because the Admiralty is where the government is, and Ray was really afraid that it would affect business because you can't get people to go there physically for mostly things you can do online, but sometimes there's certain procedures in government that you need to go in person, or it's the company secretary or somebody has to go there. And it was really out of control, like last Wednesday, Thursday, where things just government or tax things couldn't even really happen. So this does, of course, politics and business obviously have some overlap for sure, and I think that's starting to happen here. And it's honestly, I know, like people always ask me, like with Hong Kong company and China, mainland China, what happens? What's going to happen? You know, there. I think the background is 1997. The UK handed over to mainland China, Hong Kong, or there was some 50-year transition.
Right. Yeah. So they had the one country, two systems thing where Hong Kong was supposed to be autonomous under, they have like a mini constitution, and people can get elected to the legislative council. But Beijing can veto the people who get elected. So like Carrie Lam, the person that is currently in power, the candidates are chosen by Beijing. So it makes this strange tension of you have democracy in a certain way, and then you have the authoritarian kind of dictatorship of China trying to do their stuff, especially with Xi Jinping's concentration of power in recent years. And so, you know, once people have freedom, it's kind of hard to give that up, and that's what's coming out in these protests. And there was something similar in July 1st, 2003. They tried to pass a law called HK Basic Law, Article 23, which they wanted to add. And there were giant protests then, and a similar thing happened where they basically shelved that bill and they never tried to put it through again. And then you had the umbrella movement in 2014 when you had some young kids get elected to the legislative council, and they wanted to have they kind of had an independence party to break away from China. And they kind of changed the rules of the game, and that's where you had that, I think it was 79-day kind of occupy on Harcourt Road in front of the legislative council from September 26th to December 10th. And that ended with tear gas, half the amount used last Wednesday. And then that had leaders, and you know, that was a lot more political than what you're seeing this past Wednesday, which was, you know, kind of a decentralized occupation that wasn't sanctioned around the legislative council when they were supposed to push this bill through.
So yeah, I think we didn't really talk about that.
Didn't succeed in that.
Yeah, we didn't exactly define the bill, but I think there's probably listeners still that don't exactly know what exactly is happening. Even I somewhat catching up, but essentially it's saying that if there's the mainland Chinese law can be enforced in Hong Kong, or is it just or is it to take criminals that have broken Chinese law in China back to China? Because isn't that what extradition is? Or is it if I do something bad in Hong Kong, I can go to jail in China? It's
because the U.S. and I don't know, other Western governments do have extradition agreements with Hong Kong, meaning like, I don't know, if I killed somebody in the U.S. and I'm hiding out here, there's a protocol where you know, the U.S. embassy could get in contact with the Hong Kong government, and then there's a due process, and Hong Kong government can decide that, okay, I should be turned over to the Americans, and then I would get shipped off to the U.S. to be tried for something there. And so what they're trying to pass here was basically make a law that people could get shipped off to China. And you have a major clash because you have an opaque legal system there. You have about 99% prosecution rates. Here, I think it's around 60 or something I'd read. It's not as high. And you have a history of China over the past few years. You know, if they want people, they take them. You had them kidnapped 5
we've had
booksellers in
booksellers,
2015,
exactly.
and then you had 20, and those guys wound up in China, and they were actually kidnapped, some of them from Thailand, where you're at now, by Chinese agents. And then you have a guy, the head of the Tomorrow Group, Xi Chun Xiao, Jinhua, I think is his name. But in January 2017, he was abducted from the Four Seasons right by the IFC here, and later turned up in China. He was a target from Xi Jinping. He was a billionaire tycoon guy. And so they've when they want somebody, they're going after them. So what they're trying to do, the perception is legalize that. And people are afraid that because they have, quite Western here, you have freedom of press, freedom of speech.
Yeah.
You don't have all the censorship and these
Yeah.
things that you have in the mainland. And so it's really, that's what's at issue, is the freedom of the autonomous.
I was really wondering, like, would that mean Facebook would be blocked?
This is what people are afraid of, because they're, China's not supposed to, from their agreement from 97, not supposed to really change much until 2047. And they've been trying to do that, like the anti-sedition law in 2003, banning the Independence Party in 2014 before the Umbrella Movement. So they're trying to get their claws in here so that because they're trying to centralize the power, and Hong Kong being, in quotes, a part of China in a certain way. It's a challenge for them, I guess. And all the people that live here, they like their freedoms.
Yeah, I think
I'd read.
Go ahead.
I'd read something in the Guardian, and the lady had argued, it's more about like universal rights, like the right of the individual to not be persecuted or extradited to a dictatorship, the right to assemble without incurring prison, and the right to speak freely and to enjoy freedom of information. So that's really what's at play, and that's why there's so many people out on the street. And even like last Wednesday, you were talking about business. There were over 100 businesses that also went on strike, basically closed that day, allowed people to go to the protests.
Yeah.
What was qualified as a riot, I guess. But,
yeah. So
go ahead. Yeah, big backing across all different tiers of the community. And people are worried too, like if that passes, or if that were to pass, it's going to scare off business.
I know this is like, I think our listeners are a lot of times not based, in Hong Kong, and this podcast was very beginnings all Hong Kong business for people not in Hong Kong. That's kind of like the roots of this exact show, and like leveraging the benefits of Hong Kong multi-currency banking, in English UK system, a lot of those benefits, and people are nervous those benefits will stay. And then, I think one thing to note for listeners, I mean, I don't think I've read it in these recent articles, but Hong Kong's economy is not that big of a deal to mainland China anymore, with Shenzhen, Shanghai, Beijing, these other massive cities. I think that was one thing, like maybe 5, 10, 20 years ago, Hong Kong used to be more of a significant economic, quote unquote, zone or area or whatever you want to call it to mainland China that they didn't want to threaten.
Yeah, it used to represent around 30% of the entire Chinese economy. Now it's less than 3%. Last like specific stat I read was 2.6% of the Chinese economy. So it's not, mainland just considers it another, Chinese city. And there was a weird video that was making rounds around in Hong Kong over the last week, where a military official in China was speaking in Chengdu, saying that they have to, decolonize Hong Kong by getting like the communist propaganda in the schools, and the guy said that about a third of the Chinese, like in their fiber, they don't like the mainland China because they escaped here in in 49, and the communists took all their stuff. And so, they have a deep hate for the mainland. And he said there's another third that's like foreigners, and then another third that's like in the middle. And this was a Chinese military official. It's an interesting video. If I can find it, I'll share it so people could check it out
we'll put it on the show
the
notes.
link. Yeah.
So and then I guess I didn't say it, but I want to make sure. So you have the badge now. I don't know if you can put it on your Facebook profile. You've been officially tear gassed. So yeah, I don't have that privilege. I think I've seen it happening at some riots at a concert in the U.S. at Dave Matthews many years ago. But I guess now you have the proud virtual badge of being tear gassed. How is that?
I've been in, I don't know, kind of street warfare stuff when I used to live in the Basque Country in San Sebastian, and people would like throw Molotov cocktails at the police and they'd shoot back. I got used to that, but I've never been around like the tear gas stuff. And it's kind of odd when I first experienced it, because I was at the Shangri-La near Pacific Place, and when you exit there, they have these wet towels that are like in the refrigerator so you can clean your face, because we're in the tropics and you sweat a lot, and it has some kind of menthol in it. And my buddy gave me one of those, and I like cleaned my face, and then I walked over to the demonstration area, and in the bridge that goes from Pacific Place towards the Legislative Council, I guess there was tear gas in there, but you couldn't see it. And my skin was a little, I thought it was from the menthol stuff from the towel. But my skin kept getting hotter and hotter. And then like I rubbed my eyes and then I couldn't see. And then I realized, oh crap, that's tear gas probably. And then I moved closer to the demonstration stuff, and it was around 4:30, and apparently they'd kind of started trying to clear the streets around 3:30. And so then got up on some of the closed roads, and you can see them shooting at people and stuff below. And then the tear gas comes up, and tear gas clears a crowd pretty nicely, but it's not as painful as I would have thought.
Okay. So you would do it again.
I got tear gas, I think, 3 times that day. I had an idea in my head you get used to it, but I came back and read about it. It's apparently not very healthy for your lungs.
So it seems like it worked, these whatever you call it, riots, protests, etc. But I mean, we mentioned Carrie Lam, and I think I read some of the South China Morning Post stuff I think you sent me, but she said she did it because there was something in Taiwan of a criminal that came to Hong Kong or China, or I don't know. Like she's saying
that was the catalyst for it. That was the excuse, I guess you'd call. So there was a young couple that from Hong Kong that went to Taiwan, and guy and a girl, and the girl, I guess, had been cheating on this guy that she was with, and showed him a video of like some other guy she slept with, and the kid killed her and put her in a suitcase and then came back to Hong Kong. And since the crime wasn't committed in Hong Kong, he couldn't be charged here, and they don't have a extradition treaty with Taiwan, so he can be brought back there. And so that was the excuse for the bill. And so Taiwan does not support the bill, because it's also a way I've seen argued that it's China is trying to, claim Taiwan as part of China also. So it's complicated.
So it's complicated, but I mean, I heard that's what her excuse or reasoning was, and she's, we'll never know the real behind the scenes, but that was her reason to doing it. And but now it seems like it's shelved, meaning put on.
Yeah. So if they don't,
it's put on the shelf.
Yeah. So she says that it won't be brought up in the Legislative Council, which I think in July they go on break, and then if it's not brought before the council within a year, then it expires. Okay. And what people want, and then she's given a bunch of apologies, but what people want and what they're demanding is a complete withdrawal of the extradition bill. And so so she shelved it before the big sanctioned protest last Sunday.
Yeah,
last Sunday.
I think it was Saturday. She announced that she would shelve it,
Right.
but they still did the protest the next day, or at least it was Sunday.
Right. And yeah, she didn't announce it publicly. She just put out a memo, and then there was that giant turnout, which was like twice the size of the Sunday before. And then I think it was yesterday, she had a news conference and basically said sorry again, but didn't answer anybody's questions. And so now, as of something's supposed to happen at 5 o'clock today, but
Yeah, so
so there's stuff going around social media saying that here's their demands. They want complete withdrawal of the extradition bill, which means retract it so that it doesn't have the potential of coming back. Investigate the police force brutality last Wednesday. Total recall of the 612 riot claim. People want that because if you're involved in a riot based on old UK laws, it's up to 10 years in jail. And so she said that it's not, she wouldn't say that it's not a riot, but she said that people that were not being violent will not be prosecuted, which I was happy for that because I didn't know that it was a riot when I walked out into it. And then kids started throwing stuff around you. And I'm on video doing that. Being there, I've seen myself from the police side on a South China Morning Post video. And then they want them to free and drop the charges against the protesters that were arrested. I think there was around 80 people arrested that day. They released a bunch yesterday with no charges. So it'll be interesting. They want this to happen today. And if not, they say they're going to go and occupy the Legislative Council area, which is probably Harcourt Road, tomorrow morning. So things could get exciting again.
Oh boy. So yeah, I couldn't wait to do this interview because I was still trying out. It takes us a few days to get this show ready. But so today's Thursday, June 20th afternoon. So it seems like a couple hours later, you're putting on your party gear and going out again. So is it gonna be something outside?
I check it out from a distance, but yeah, I'll definitely be
Okay.
checking in because
So-
it's walking distance from my house, so I go back and forth to see what's going on.
I think
Yeah, so I'm just looking at this demand thing they have online. It says, or else on June 21st at 7 a.m., Operation Protect Hong Kong, City Blooms, and non-cooperation movement in all of Hong Kong will go on. All citizens and fellows, please start action on your own. Reminder, the Legislative Council has a meeting in the afternoon. So it looks like they want to block that.
makes so I'm trying to follow an outline on my show notes here, but I don't know. I mean, I just did a podcast. We had Cornelia from Forest Shipping, one of our partner sponsors and supporters, and they, of course, they deal with a lot of shipments, and they, that was just a couple of weeks ago. This trade war, maybe it's been a little bit more than a month now, but do you think this is somewhat connected to that? This whole Hong Kong stuff? I mean, is there any connection?
This has nothing to do with that. This has nothing to do with that. This is 100% Hong Kong movement, Hong Kong people, basically not accepting the rule of mainland China, not accepting the retraction of their rights, not accepting censorship. It's purely a local thing, not connected to the bigger trade war. But
I feel like
it doesn't help the trade war for the mainland.
I feel like in my back of my mind there because the trade war stuff is not even as a 2018 type thing, and it's not like I know it's getting heated up lately with the Trump Twitter tweets, but I feel like there might be some some kind of, because also what always happens is the mainland Chinese or the government or whatever you want to call it, they'll blame America or they'll blame foreigners to influence Hong Kong people to do this. That's always what's said.
Yeah, that's something I forgot to bring up. So yeah, in the China Daily, they say that it's foreign actors in Hong Kong that are training these people to do that. I have a guy that I work with. I won't say where I work right now, but he actually wrote an article in Foreign Policy. But he was at the protest, and the guys were getting bricks, and he was getting the bricks and putting them back. And somebody took a photo, and then on the Chinese social media, people have him circled, and they say that he's works for the CIA. And then I saw another thing in Chinese on social media that had these two heavy-set white guys just kind of observing, and people taking photos of them and said that they work for the CIA also. And my wife's family, her parents, I guess a lot of Asian families have like groups on WeChat or on WhatsApp, and they share different stuff. And her parents are clearly on the side of the mainland. They say that, and they're a family that's been in Hong Kong for like 300 years before the British.
Crazy.
And but in those groups, it's they share a lot of like fake news. Like the older adults believe that it's real. Her dad said that the protest that was Photoshop photos.
Crazy.
So just it's kind of divisive. And if you're not on Hong Kong Island, you don't I'm not sure what it's like over in Kowloon, but you definitely see all the action here because there's massive amounts of people.
There's that joke of the Huawei phone and then the like iPhone and all these other foreign phones, and it shows protests in the pictures of all the foreign phones, but on the Huawei phone it shows the empty street. I think you've seen that one. And
I haven't seen that. I had a friend. I had a friend in Shenzhen yesterday text me and asked if I was a USA spy.
Wow. And then
LOL.
And then in the Chinese news, they showed a picture of this, Wendy, or maybe it was even you. Somebody shared me the headlines in Chinese in the Chinese news, and it says, "This is for the people supporting the bill." Oh, they're supporting this. That's what they said in the news in some Chinese article.
Yeah, one of the China Daily articles said that this was mothers supporting the extradition bill. That's the protest.
Yeah, exactly. They're saying, it's insane. But I don't want to. Of course, I have a Chinese wife, and don't know if I should mention. But I mean, a lot of Chinese people will say they don't understand why this is happening. This Hong Kong is China. I mean, that's what the UK gave it to China. It's China. It's China, is what a lot of Chinese people would say. You know, like so.
They also say Taiwan's China.
Yeah.
Hong Kong, though, politically, I guess, officially is China, but it has a special autonomous region like Macau. Yeah. It's something else they fear here because they've been putting up photos also in the protest areas of those kind of concentration camp style things in Xinjiang, and they fear that if this gets passed, then China will bring all the technology, because it's kind of like a 1984 dystopia there, like a open air prison, the whole Xinjiang region.
Crazy.
That they'll bring that technology and start using it here, and they think that that's a testing ground to move it here.
So let's try to bring it back to the business side. I mean, I have a Hong Kong company. I know a lot of listeners have, even heard some of our podcasts. I haven't really had much content about it lately, but I've had some clients or friends just saying, what should I do about what's going to happen? And also there's been this pressure on the banking system for years. I wonder if that's even some influence or preparation for something like that. I mean, maybe what do you think? Is this going to change people from opening, operating, doing business with a Hong Kong entity?
I know that there's been an uptick of Hong Kong people buying property since this has started in Vancouver, and I read something about a ton of money being pulled out of the Bank of China from people getting their money out of here last Wednesday, and so people that have money and the ability to get out, they've set themselves up to be able to do that, kind of like pre-97 with mass migrations to Canada, Australia, and those people come back and work, but now there's a reverse migration.
Yeah, I feel I guess maybe it calmed down, but I think that last Wednesday, Thursday, when there was the quote unquote riots, I think that's when people were really freaking out. People were afraid, but I think it's somewhat
Yeah.
calmed down. So at least listeners, I don't think you should freak out too much. Although it's not a positive, it's definitely not a positive. It's a more
Well, the market hates uncertainty, and it's uncertain times, and it's kind of emboldened Taiwan not to trust China. It's kind of taken the mask off of that they actually want to work with and integrate Hong Kong in some way.
But I don't know if it was. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, and so for long-term business interests, it's not just this. If you take all the things, the 2003 movement, the umbrella movement, the kidnappings, add this on, it doesn't bode well as a pattern for the future. But the mass movement happening on the ground does add some hope, I think. But who knows how crazy China can get.
Well, like I said earlier, I think the sad fact is Hong Kong's economy is not as big of a deal to them as it used to be. So I think that's probably hurt because I used to tell people years ago. I mean, because a lot of mainland Chinese politicians probably and other leaders have Hong Kong companies, Hong Kong real estate, Hong Kong investments that they don't want to lose. But it feels like they're willing to lose that now. I feel, generally, or, I think they're not as worried as they might have used to be. And it seems like leadership there
the downside isn't as big.
All right. Well, this has been an interesting conversation. I don't know about you, but I'm somewhat paranoid to put this online. My name, my face is pretty well connected to this show. I don't know. I still plan to do business in mainland China and enter China. I mean, are you worried? I mean, you mentioned you were on the news. I mean, I'm going to put this podcast. It's obviously going to have my name on it. What is your thoughts there? Or you don't worry about it?
Personally, I'm not worried about it because fortunately I'm not tied to the ground here. Like if you didn't have options to leave, you might think differently. We'll see if I'm able to go back into China, but interesting times.
But yeah, they definitely have facial recognition now everywhere. They're definitely got big data everywhere. I mean, so I'm sure. And the borders have been getting stricter. Like I mentioned in some previous shows I've recorded, they ask me more questions. I've talked to other friends that have been held at border for an hour and a half. We're trying to do this 4th annual cross-border summit in Guangzhou in October, and my wife is scaring me about some of these risks. Some people, we had an organizer meet up in Shenzhen, and they're like, oh yeah, just make sure all the attendees give them some kind of PDF to print about in English and Mandarin to explain why they're coming to China, what's the purpose. And, it's scary. It's definitely scarier times. And there, I feel like there's a lot of similarities with Chinese and Americans about being patriotic and, listening and believing their news, right? Like, I think there, we can say what we want about America's somewhat freedom, but I think a lot of times media is influenced by political reasons or the owner's reasons, and a lot of times and there's fake news even on Facebook and stuff to use for political reasons, I think. And I feel like Americans are Chinese, it's such huge countries, and those people believe what their media and their governments say. So it's scary times for sure. I mean, it's definitely not boring, right? I mean, these trade wars and these riots and protests and the whole thing in my world is changing. I mean, I happened to move to Thailand, a year ago. I don't want to say I felt this coming, but I definitely did feel some. It's not like it used to be. So I don't know. I'm really I don't know. Just still evaluating all of this, and I plan to enter China. I hope This show. I hope the podcast. I mean, the website Global Media has been blocked before in China, but it's not permanent blocked. It's working now, but I have a feeling if they pick this up, it might not work for a while. But I don't know. I feel like I had to share, and I appreciate you, Chris, for sharing. And stay safe, dude. I know I know you're into this. You like this kind of like chaos, and it's definitely it's a historical time. I think this will definitely be, these dates will be in the books, the history books, at least in some way. I mean, we'll see if they escalate or not in the near future. But I mean, I don't know. Is there anything else you want to add? I think we're kind of wrapping up.
Yeah, I guess you did mention the nationalism, and yeah, I'm similar to you. It's very nationalistic within mainland China, and one way you can look at this, what's happening here in Hong Kong, it's these guys are against it's anti-nationalistic. It's a identity politics of being, most people here speak Cantonese, not Mandarin. They want to force them to speak Mandarin. So it's an anti-nationalist movement. It's identity politics. It's kind of what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, I remember Occupy Hong Kong. I was around. That was a long one. That was like 2 or 3 months, like you said during the show. And
79 days.
It's sad. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for Hong Kong. I don't know. I mean, when you think about the size, the proximity, the power, the money, I don't know. I hope. But again, what was going to happen in 2047 anyway? What is going to happen? What was supposed to happen? I don't think anybody even really knows, right? I mean, that's I think
I think seeing this, it's not gonna happen smoothly. And one of the reasons you have such a huge turnout is because people feel like this is their last stand. If they don't do something now, then they'll never be able to do anything. So it's pretty kind of existential threat to the identity of the Hong Kong people.
Well, I guess that sounds like a good way to wrap up this show. And but yeah, Hong Kong people, like the other last part is, I don't know, I wasn't there, but they said it was pretty. I mean, there was one beautiful scene. I think you sent me a few others. There's the ambulance that was taking somebody, and all the people would move out in a very organized manner, and they're very like,
they clean the streets. They're very polite. When I didn't have a mask when the tear gas stuff came, and they give me a mask and they clean out my eyes for me. And then a guy, because he can't see, he walked me to the side and put my hand on a fence so I could stay standing. And then 3 other people came and said, "Are you okay? You okay?" So wow. It's very polite. Everyone in Hong Kong's polite, but it's overly polite. So it's a really fascinating,
that is amazing
thing to experience when there's
so that's definitely props for the Hong Kong people. So I think with that we can wrap for this episode.
Excellent. Thanks, Mike.
Thanks, Chris, for sharing. Are you enjoying the content at Global from Asia? Do you want to tap into our amazing team of writers, audio editors, video editors, and others to make valuable and exciting content for your e-commerce business or your online growing company? Check out our sister company, contentinvestments.com, for your writing solutions. We would love to work with you. We have various packages of monthly or one-time. Try it out. Talk to a customer service rep there. We check out the different packages and make a podcast of your own. I know a lot of e-commerce sellers want to have their own podcast, but either don't know how or don't have time or don't even want to host it. We even have done guest hosting where we have somebody on our team being the host of their podcast. Check it out at www.contentinvestments.com. Beep. Is this show still online? Well, we're not centrally distributed. Like I said, maybe download this podcast, host it on your server. Maybe it won't be online forever. Maybe I'll be disappearing too. Like Chris said, sometimes people in Thailand disappear, and I hope I'm not one of those people. I think I said it before on the show, but some people have not wanted to come on the show because their visa issue, you know. There's just so much risks. I guess that's what makes it exciting. James Bond was a pretty cool series. I feel like what's happening in the world? What is really happening? We're not going to transcript this show because we don't want to do SEO or internet marketing or text marketing on most of the words that were said in this show. You know, also, Chris and I were chatting after the show, and Hong Kong is still pretty also involved a lot with the currency trading of RMB, so that is actually pretty important for the Chinese economy. So that is something they might not want to go out of control too much. But I do wonder what's going to happen. And I actually have a few Hong Kong companies, or I'm a partner in, an owner in, and I know there's the hassles of the audits. Nobody likes the audits, and there's also other things. But I've always said, it's English language jurisdiction, UK influenced legal corporate systems, multi-currency banking, English banking. But it's getting scary now. Seriously getting scary. I mean, we're a business podcast, and I mean, we want to keep things simple. I think as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, we just want to have a place to put our money, to do business trades, to make money, keep our lives somewhat simple. I don't know. I don't like politics. I know a lot of business owners. I don't want to deal with politics. Unfortunately, politics seems very much involved with business right now. Trade wars, taxes, government is almost getting kind of shut down with riots or protests. It kind of, I get this little smirk. It's exciting too, but man, it's not good for business. And there's definitely some rifts. There's definitely some conversations at dinner tables. Even my dinner table, and my wife, she has different opinions, and I don't know if she's gonna like this show. I don't know. She's mainland Chinese. I mean, like I said, many Chinese people just feel like, hey, who are these people in Hong Kong? They're Chinese. They whatever you want to say, ran away, fled, swam, ran to Hong Kong at different times to quote unquote escape whatever was happening in China. And I'm pausing here. I'm thinking. Usually I kind of ramble. Usually this is a blah, 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 but I'm afraid I'll ramble and say something offensive. I don't mean to offend everybody. I honestly believe we're all humans. I just think we need a bigger, quote-unquote, enemy. I think humans just want to, some reason, or human nature wants to have an enemy, I just think the stakes keep getting bigger as the globalization happens. We need aliens to invade us, like in the Independence Day movie, and we all come together and stop fighting about this BS of, but it's really about control and power. I think more than money, right? It's more about the control and the power and the influence. But I think filtering and censoring is never a good way to control. I mean, how much resources and money and time can you spend filtering? I mean, the costs and the overhead. And people don't want to be filtered. People don't want to be censored, I believe. And I just don't think that will be a good long-term strategy. People will see and hear things eventually, no matter how hard you try to cover up or change what maybe is the reality. What's that Braveheart quote? Those who win the war make the rules, or rewrite the history books, or the history books are written by those that win the war. Maybe my life and my influence and my perspectives on everything is influenced by the history books I read when I was a kid, and that's why I'm saying what I'm saying, and I'm just some ignorant Laowai foreigner that doesn't know China and doesn't know culture and is just trying to weaken China and influence Chinese people to go against those people. I mean, okay, maybe maybe I will disappear for some of this blah 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 session. Maybe we'll keep this one shorter so I don't say more things. Maybe with some AI will make my voice say something different in the future. But for now, I don't think it's that easy to do. Can't we all just get along? Was that Rodney King? Black people, yellow people, white people, brown people, purple people. Actually, I think the ones that's going to benefit the most are like my kids. I think international exposure at a young age is probably the best way to solve this, rather than being stuck in your home country until forever or until you're older, I think maybe the best way is education, right? At a younger age. Although it's scary, some of the books want to change or influence your mind. So maybe that's not even the answer either. I don't know. I just think maybe an alien invasion is the best way to solve this. And we all come together like in those movies and fight a bigger common enemy. And then it'll be Earthlings versus Martians versus Venetians versus other universes. And then humans will be all the same. But for now, we got to fight with each other because humans like to have an enemy and fight other people and try to take resources from one person to another to benefit my common community of people versus your common community of people and be powerful over this other community of people. It just seems childish, honestly, but this is the reality of our majority of life in society today. Hopefully, maybe this podcast can influence a little bit of perspective of some of you, or at least open some of your eyes. So I think I'll hit the stop button now. I hope you enjoyed this one. It will not be on all of our channels, and hopefully I don't disappear. See you later.
To get more info about running an international business, please visit our website at www.globalfromasia.com. That's www.globalfromasia.com. Also, be sure to subscribe to our iTunes feed. Thanks for tuning in.